Good day everyone, I am Haishal Bibundok and I'm going to report about PERT CPM networks. So, the project schedule is merely a modified version of the project plan. It's a simple way to keep track of a control project activities. Actually, the schedule can be created in a variety of ways, common formats, Gantt charts, and PERT CPM network. PERT and CPM are both project management techniques used for scheduling, planning, and monitoring projects. They share some similarities, but also they have differences. Down projects into smaller tasks. Both help identify critical tasks that impact the overall project timeline. Focuses on time management, especially in situations with uncertain tasks and durations. CPM focuses on balancing time and cost. It uses a three-point estimate where optimistic, most likely, and pessimistic. To account for uncertainty, CPM uses a single most likely time and estimate. PERT is better suited for projects with new technology or research and development. By combining these techniques, project managers gain a more comprehensive understanding of project time limits, resource allocation, and potential risks, leading to better decision making throughout the project lifecycle. Analysis help us understand the statistical likelihood of meeting the project deadline and consider uncertainties. CPM analysis helps us identify the critical path and optimize resource allocation to minimize project costs while staying on schedule.
In project management, especially in method like PERT or program evaluation and review technique, and CPM or critical path method, we use specific terms to describe the different aspect of the project progress. So first is the activity. Activity means to say a task or set of tasks required by the project. Activities use resources and time. Think of activities as the tasks you need to do to complete your project. These tasks could be anything from writing a report to conducting experiment or building a prototype. So each activity requires resources like time, material, and effort. Second is event. Event is an identifiable state resulting from the completion of one or more activities. Events consume no resources or time. Before an event can be achieved or realized, all its predecessor activities must be completed. An event is like a checkpoint or a milestone along the way. It's a point that marks the completion of one or more activities. Events don't consume any resources or time themselves. They're just points in time that show progress. Before you can reach an event, all activities leading up to it must be finished. Third is milestone. It is a identifiable and noteworthy events marking significant progress on the project. So milestone are special events that signify or significant progress or achievements in your project. So they are like important markers that let everyone involved know that you've reached a key stage or completed a major part of the project.
The fourth one is network. A diagram of nodes may represent activities or events connected by directional arcs, may represent activities or simply show technological dependence that defines the project and illustrate the technological relationship of all activities. Networks are usually drawn with a start node on the left and a finish node on the right. Arcs are always tipped with an arrowhead to show the direction of precedence, that is, from the predecessors and to successors. A network in a project management is a diagram of nodes connected by directional arc, showing the flow and dependencies of activities. It typically starts with a start node on the left, ends with a finish node on the right, and uses arrowheads on arc to indicate task precedence. The fifth one is a series of connected activities or intermediate events between any two events in a network. A path in a network is a connected sequence of activities or events between 2 points. It shows the flow of work or progress and help identify critical path for project management. The sixth one is critical path. The set of activities on a path from the project starts event to its finish event that if delayed will delay the completion date of the project. The critical path is a sequence of activities from the project start to finish that, if delayed, will delay the project completion. Identifying and managing tasks on this path is crucial for meeting project deadlines. The last one is critical time, the time required to complete all activities on the critical path. Critical time is the minimum time required to complete all activities on the critical path of a project. It's crucial for project managers to meet project deadlines and deliver results on time.
Building the network. There are two ways of displaying a project network. Activity on arrow network, usually associated to PERT. Activity on node network, usually associated to CPM. Activity on arrow network shows each activity as an arrow, and the nodes represent the starting and ending points. In activity on arrow, we draw arrows to represent activities. Imagine each activity as a task you need to do. The starting and ending points of each task are shown as dots or circles. The arrow shows the flow of tasks from start to finish. Activity on node network shows each activity as a node, and arrow shows the immediate predecessor activities. In activity on node, we draw boxes or rectangles to represent tasks. Each box represents a task you need to do. Arrow shows which task need to be done before another can start. So in activity on arrow, tasks are shown as arrows with dots at the beginning and end, while the activity on node, tasks are shown as boxes or rectangles with arrows showing their order. Both helps us see what needs to be done and in what order for a project.
Good day, sir. I am Ryan Castillo, and I am tackling about the EON diagrams. EON diagrams or nodes represents activities or tasks that need to be completed within the project. So each node typically includes information such as the activity name, duration, and other relevant details. The edges in an AON diagram represents the precedence of relationships between activities. These relationships define the order in which activities must be completed. For example, if activity A must be completed before activity B can start, there will be a directed edge from node A to node B. Critical path is one of the key advantage of AON diagrams is their ability to identify the critical path in a project. The, the critical path is the longest path through the network and determines the minimum amount of time required to complete the project. Activities on the critical path have zero slack, meaning any delay in these activities will directly impact the project's overall duration. So AON diagrams are used for various analysis purposes, including determining the earliest start and finish times for each activity, identifying the critical path, calculating total project durations, and assessing the impact of scheduling changes on the project timeline. So basically, AON diagrams provide a visual representation of the project schedule, helping project managers and teams better understanding the sequence of activities and dependence within the project. And that's all, sir. Thank you.
So the next topic is about a comparison of AON and AOA network conventions. So in this slide, we are comparing two network conventions used in project management or system analysis, the activity on node and activity on arrow. Again, when we say activity on node, this method, it represents activity as nodes or circles and shows the sequence of activities in project planning. The nodes are connected by lines that indicate the flow and dependencies between activities. On the other hand, when we say activity on arrow, in this method, activities are represented by arrows. The sequence and dependencies of activities are indicated by the direction of the arrows. So we have 6 scenarios. So the first scenario is sequential activities. So ang AON is nasa left side, ang AOA is nasa right side. So i-compare natin duha. When you say AON, this sequential relationship is represented by nodes where activity A precedes activity B and activity B precedes activity C. Sa right side, AOA, this sequence is represented by arrows where activity is followed by B and activity B is followed by C. So the next scenario is concurrent activity. So when we illustrate the AUN, AUN doesn't naturally represent concurrent activities. However, in AUN diagrams, concurrent activities can be shown by placing multiple arrows from a single node, indicating that multiple activities can proceed concurrently. On the right side, activity on arrow, it illustrates that concurrent activities are represented by parallel arrows. For instance, both A and B activities can lead to a single node representing C. So the third scenario uh, is we can call this as dependent activity. When we illustrate the AON, the dependent activities are represented by nodes where one activity cannot start until the preceding one is completed. For example, activity B cannot begin until activity A is completed. So when we illustrate the activity on arrow, the dependent activities are represented by arrows from one activity to another, indicating that the succeeding activity is dependent on the completion of the preceding one. So the fourth scenario is we can call this as complex dependencies. When we illustrate AON, the complex dependencies such as requiring both C and D to be completed before A and B can start are represented by multiple converging arrows into a single node. When we illustrate AOA or activity on arrow, these same complex dependencies would be represented by arrows from both C and D converging into a single node before leading to A and B.
In AON, C cannot begin until both A and D are completed. In AOA, a dummy activity or dash line is introduced to represent the dependency of C on both A and D without any actual activity taking place. This example illustrates how different project activities are interdependent and how these dependencies are visually represented in both AON and AOA conventions. This slide aims to clarify the meaning of network structure in project management. These compare two network conventions, the activity on node or AON and activity on arrow or AOA. These are methods used in project management to represent the sequence of activity in project. Also, activity on node or AON, this method uses nodes, usually represented by circle or boxes, to depict activities and arrow to show the dependencies between them. It's a common way to visualize the workflow of a project. Activity on arrow or AOA. In this method, the arrows represent activities and the nodes, points where arrows start or end, represent the start or end of activities. AOA often includes dummy activities, shows as dotted arrows to represent dependencies that do not correspond to actual work. The slide likely explains how these two conventions can be used to plan and manage projects, with a focus on how activities are sequenced and how dependencies are represented differently in each method.
Hi sir, I am Gabriel Santa Ana and now I am going to discuss the slack. So, determining slack. Slack is the amount of time of an activity on a non-critical path and it can be delayed without affecting the duration of the project. Example is that without putting it on the critical path. So, in calculating the slack, we will use four calculated values. First is the early start. It is the earliest an activity can start based on the prerequisites. And second is the early finish. Earliest it can finish based on the prerequisite or duration. And the third, late start. It is the latest an activity that can start and not delay the project. And the last is the late finish, or it is the latest activity can finish and not delay the project. So the critical path method or CPM is also known as the critical path analysis or CPA. It is the scheduling procedure that uses a network diagram to depict a project and the sequences of tasks required to complete it, which also known as paths. To understand the critical path, we have here the chart. which has the color green start and the color orange is the finish. So as you can see, we have the task A, B, C, D, E. Uh, to reach the requirement critical path of 9 days, we will start at task A with the 3 days and task B with 2 days. To continue with task B, we have the task C with 4 days. But task B and task C doesn't reach the critical path requirements, which is the 9 days, because task B and task C is only equals to 6 days. But on the other hand, let us look for the other options. We have task A, D, and E, which is each of the tasks has 3 days. So, task A with 3 days, task D 3 days, and task E 3 days, which is exact and accurate with the critical path requirements, which is the 9 days. So, the critical path to this diagram is the task A, D, E to finish the project or the requirement or activities. So for the last slide, scheduling is in project management is the listing of activities, deliverables, and milestone within a project. A schedule is also usually includes a plan, start, and finish date, duration, and resources assigned to each activity. Effective project scheduling is a critical component of successful time management. Thank you.